Hi everyone, this is Neeladri Chaudhary, CEO of Excellentro. I would like to thank DevOps Summit Canada for giving me this opportunity to speak in this event in 2021. And my topic is DevOps, going beyond frameworks and practices. Now, before we start, let us understand that why we need to use DevOps, SRE, kind of approaches. So the point here is, why the metamorphosis? Why do we need to change? Earlier, we used to buy CDs, we used to buy music in cassettes, and we used to play it. But today we don't do that. The reason is that today we are looking at a service, not at a product. So as I call it, we are looking at a servitized product. When Uber is providing you a service, it is not providing you a taxi service. It is providing you a travel experience. Customers today are looking for a better experience, and that's what we have to deliver. And only if we can deliver that, we will be able to survive. Now, as Carlota Perez says, the new paradigm always comes wrapped in the old. So we will always have something coming out of what we are used to doing it and then changing it gradually. Now, we are in the era of the new industrial revolution and in the middle of it. And that's why Carlota Perez says it's a time of high peril and great opportunities. The question is, are we able to take that great opportunities that are coming to us? Otherwise, we are going to peril. So we need to get into new ways of working. We have been used to doing work in our traditional way. We are following different frameworks that are there. Name it, I mean, anything. In Agile, we have so many like Scrum, Less, XP, SAFe, so many frameworks. In ITSM, we have this IT service management, the main one, the ITIL, the new ones that had come up. We have the project management frameworks like the PMBOK, Prince2. But if you look at it, each of it is trying to improve in their own areas. Now, if we have to deliver faster, safer, and stabler systems to give better user experience, because that's where the value creation happens, we need to change our way of working. We have already seen that the system is a complex product. And what we are doing is we are trying to make it more useful. The entire journey of the user, the customer, and value is created only when the actual intended user uses your service or product and gets the expected benefit. When we are writing a code, when we are maintaining a server, when we are maintaining a database or a network, no value is created. It is like Apple creating a lot of the laptops and phones, and it is all lying in the warehouse or in the shops in the display, and nobody is buying, then there is no value created. Value is created only when the user uses it. So we have to get into that entire value stream and look at it from a holistic point of view. Now, as we were saying that the new industrial revolution, it is about using of AI, ML, IoT, new telecommunication technologies like 5G, data science, all of it we want to use to give a better experience, create a better value for the customer. Till now, we have always seen that IT was a cost center. But today, business has seen that IT is no longer a cost center. IT is business. We have always seen and been told that without business, there is no IT, which is true. But what we also now know is without IT, there is no business. And the COVID has taught us a big lesson there. Only those organizations who had an online presence or who could get into an online presence quickly are the ones who survived. There are so many different restaurants in front of my house, which is near to big campuses of IT service providers. When the lockdown started, most of those restaurants went out of business. The only couple of them that survived was the ones who already had an online presence or who could quickly get into an online presence. The same thing is true for the schools. Those who could get into an online teaching method, they survived. If you see all the industries also started looking at it. And the different industries are those who could adapt to this change, to this new way of using IT in their business. They are the ones which is not only surviving, but also doing well. So we need to keep evolving using evolutionary transformations and not the big T, the Big Bang transformation, but evolutionary transformation is what we are looking at. Gradually, as we need to improve, we keep improving over and over. But we need to see that big picture. We need to look at holistically, not at trying to improve our individual areas. That is not going to help. So we have to participate in strategic activities along with our customer. There has to be a collaborative value creation, as Untitled 4 always mentions. We need to think in terms of having one shared objective that is creating that value for the customer. We have to move from an output-driven process to an outcome-driven objective. We need to move from an individual to a team-based objective, right? So if we have to survive, if we have to do good in the current scenario, we need to move from our traditional way of working. And here is where we need to have that holistic approach, and that we cannot restrict ourselves by looking at frameworks only from a specific point of view. We are also looking at a scenario of globalization. We are not now no longer looking at just internationalization. Now, what does that mean? Now, localization is the first step. That is adapting to the needs of the specific geography. We have to do that. Then we extend it to internationalization. So the servitized product can be used by customers across the globe. So we have the good example is, let's say, McDonald's. They have their product, which is specific to from where it started, like say US. But is it there? No. Now that same process, same product can be used across the globe with their franchises. But we are now extending one level further, which is globalization. That is the activity that brings people, culture, and economies of different countries closer together. It's not about just the product, the deliverable. It is about how we are bringing everybody closer. We are looking at the culture, we are looking at the taste, we are looking at the economies of different countries and making our product suitable for that. So organizations need to better connect to the customers around the world. We need to have international alliances, which can even be with competitors and system integrators to build strategy with globalization as their primary concern. So we are looking at the servitized product in a new way to give the experience to the customer. It is not about the deliverable. We have to see how and what the user wants in that particular country across the globe. We have to look at even our teams are not located in only one place. They are spread all across the globe. So we have to look at that how are we bringing that culture together, those people coming together. And they are not, with the pandemic, they are not able to come together physically in one place. So we have to take steps to make them feel together with the common shared objective. We also see that there's a lot of convergence of IT into non-IT organizations. Very recently, in my event, DevOps India Summit, we had an award nomination, which also got a jury's award, is from a company which is into manufacturing of aluminum, a metal. Now, how they are using the principles, the values of DevOps, the culture change, the automation, the use of data, measurement, improving the flow of work by reducing or removing waste and taking care of the constraints. They created and sharing of knowledge. By doing that, they have been able to create a new grade of steel, which only a couple of companies across the globe are producing it. So if you look at automobile, we see that in automobile, there is a lot of these ITs coming into play. Without IT, the products like, not even like the Teslas of the world, but even other vehicles, even the normal vehicles like your Audis and BMWs, there are so much of IT involved in that for the car to even work. So we need to start looking at it. So we are looking at the convergence of internationalization to globalization. We are looking at international alliances with competitors. We are looking at system integrators building strategy with globalization as primary consideration. Now, customers also need to start treating their system integrators, their service providers, to be a strategic partner, not a delivery vendor. So we have to look at various other aspects to make this happen. We need to have agility and flexibility in design so that we can move from the localization to internationalization to globalization. And obviously the teams has to be autonomous. But if you need the teams to be autonomous, you need the architecture to be loosely coupled. We need a lot of upskilling that needs to be done. So if you look at all these, we are looking at a product as an outcome. We are looking at that servitized product, right? We are looking at ownership of the outcome, not the deliverables. So that's a change in the mindset of the customers and system integrators both. Today there is no organization who can do their work on their own. They will have at least one service provider along with them. So we need to focus not only on the customer, not only on the products, but also a huge amount of focus has to be there on the service providers and the way of working with the service providers. The customers have to treat the service providers as a strategic partner. So servitized product will be key in this. And co-creation of value has to be happening by experimenting, hypothesis-based experimentation. As we see, the customers do not know what they need. They do not know what is possible to be done. As Steve Jobs had mentioned long time back, that even if Henry Ford would have asked his customers what they want in the new car, most probably the answer they would have got was faster horses. So we have to co-create value, and that's where the concept of experiment-based development or hypothesis-based development has to start. We have to understand that not every customer is the same. My liking of songs is different from anybody else's liking of songs or music. What I am doing with a banking system as a corporate user is different from what somebody else is doing it as a salary account, or somebody else is doing it as a person who is retired for their livelihood, or somebody who is using it as an investment. So how can we have a one size fits all approach to everything? We need to do customized mass production. So co-creation of value through experimentation helps in better customization and provide better value. So we have to choose the suitability of the model of both the customer and the system integrator perspective. There should be value to both. And for that, we need to look at it holistically across the entire value stream. Everyone in the value chain should be able to use the technology. And that's where the need for value stream management is becoming more and more important, and moving to a product team approach is important, not a project. As Dr. Mickelson says, and project in his book, Project to Product, we have to change our approach. We have to change our practices into collaboratively experimenting with customers, knowledge sharing, use of agile and lean tools, commercial models. Leadership need to understand the expectation that will require their own upskilling. Obviously, with so much of IoT, data science, new technology coming in, use of cloud, security will become a very, very important concern. So we need to use new technology. Now, if you look at it, if we try to start looking at each individual areas of improvement, it is not going to give us anything more than what it has already given today. Now that we are moving away from looking at only as a cost center, when we are looking as IT as a business, when we see that in the Dow Jones list and the New York Stock Exchange list, the top companies are no longer manufacturing companies, but IT-enabled companies or IT companies, we have to give that due respect, that due recognition to IT. And we have to look at IT as one of the primary elements to even survive. Obviously, you will grow only if you are using your IT the best. The challenge is a smaller organization who is nimble will be able to do that and use IT in a better manner, faster manner than any of the big organizations. So the competition is not with another big organization, but a smaller organization. So we have to start looking at it. People will play a very, very important aspect. We need to look at the human capital, not as human resource. So there has to be shared accountability. There has to be psychological safety. You have seen in Jonathan Smart's book, Sooner, Safer, Happier, he gives example of how Boeing is facing difficulty, and because of lack of psychological safety, there has been crashes which has happened. Similarly, life has been lost in British Petroleum case. We need decentralized decision making. Each self-organized, self-sufficient team should be autonomous and should be able to take their own decisions. We need to decide faster. The entire organization, end to end of the value stream, every party involved, every department of the organization involved has to work towards the shared objective and has to be in the same rhythm. It cannot be at different rhythms. You cannot have a 2-week sprint with a appraisal cycle of 1 year, with a change advisory board every 1 month, and a release window every quarter. Your recruitment process not once in a year. Every department should be able to give you what is required for delivering that outcome when it is required. So we have talked about customize mass production already. We have to co-create value, lifelong connection. We have to look at customizability, create the experience, holistic domain knowledge along with your holistic IT knowledge. Now, all these, along with security, which will be of primary concern, we need to have that holistic view. Security, again, is not going to be some tools that is used, that is run. Security has to be baked in the entire pipeline, into the entire life cycle at different stages. It has to be architected, it has to be designed, it has to be implemented across, and everybody has to take responsibility, as DevSecOps says, that security is everybody's responsibility. We see the top, if you look at the top 10 vulnerability of OWASP, we see that injection problem is the first and the high vulnerability in the top 10. And that is there from 2017. Is this such a big thing to change? No, because we are not taking ownership of it as a developer, as a tester, as an operations person. That is the reason why we are having. And we have to consider security in each of our design aspect, in our architecture. Architecting and testing both requires to be done thoroughly in our new way of doing things. If we have to deliver better value to customer, faster, safer, and stabler. Obviously, psychological safety here also will play a role. We have to look at the supply chain vulnerability, because I was reading somewhere that today we are using 80% of our code is something which we have got from outside. Only 20% is what we write. So we have to be very careful what we are getting from where. So supply chain vulnerability becomes one of the major issues that will be there. And we have to extend our definition of done to production. We cannot limit it to only the production. It is not about continuous integration and continuous delivery into production environment, into development environment. That is what today people are doing with whatever the tools that we are talking about. We have to deliver continuous delivery to production. That is where the value creation happens. So if we need to look at it, we have to look at it holistically. This definition from the DevOps handbook, I like it very well. Imagine a world where product owners, development, QA, IT operations, and InfoSec work together, not only to help each other, but also to ensure that the overall organization succeeds by working towards a common goal. They enable the fast flow of planned work into production while achieving world-class stability, reliability, availability, and security. So this is very apt in the current scenario. We are looking at everybody working together towards that common objective. We cannot make us looking at only specific portions of the whole thing. And what I see is, in most cases, these frameworks that we see, those frameworks are making us more siloed in our organization. We have to understand all the frameworks are good. The problem is how we are implementing it, how we are thinking it. We become more and more attached towards our frameworks rather than the outcome that we are looking at. We have to move away from that. And that's where DevOps and SRE comes into play, because if you look at DevOps, it is not a framework. It is telling us to work with the different frameworks together and take the best of it to achieve these three principles, which is increase of flow of work from left to right. So understand and increase the flow of work. Second is create shorter feedback loops that enable continuous improvement. That is shift left. And finally, we have to create a culture that fosters experimentation, taking risk and learning from failure. Understanding that repetition and practice is prerequisite to mastery. As Andrew Clay says, either you are a learning organization or you are going to lose to one. which is a learning organization. We have to continuously practice. If you remember the Kung Fu Panda, if you remember any of the Jackie Chan movies, you'll find that they practice all through the journey, and then only they master it, then only they are able to do something better, with the villains. If we look at the 5 values of DevOps, we are talking about a culture where we look at software engineering from a endpoint, where we are delivering value to a customer. Yes, automation is required in that. We have to use automation in the right place, in the right way. We don't do automation just because we have to do automation. We have to use the concepts of lean. When we talk about lean, we have to look at the second generation of lean, which started in Toyota, not the first generation of lean, which peaked in Toyota. First generation of lean talked about standardization, mass production. But second generation of lean, which started in Toyota, brought in the variability into it, because we talked about customized mass production. So we have to bring in the variability. We cannot hold on to what it was there earlier. So we have to look at that chain. Measurement, Deming had mentioned long time back after World War II. What you cannot define, you cannot measure. What you cannot measure, you cannot control. And what you cannot control, you cannot improve. But we want to improve in every step. It is a journey of continuous improvement and learning. That is what DevOps is trying to tell us. And DevOps is trying to tell us about sharing of knowledge, sharing of pain, sharing of work, sharing of the goodness of all the different frameworks to bring in together and see what helps really to deliver. It's not about just focusing and blindly following certain steps. See what is beneficial, see what is useful for delivering the value to the customer, and accordingly bring it together, bringing all these frameworks together. We have seen that if we need to do that, we need transformational leadership, where they have vision of what they want to achieve, the inspirational communication, the supportive leadership, the intellectual stimulation, the personal recognition. And along with that leadership, if we have the empowered teams, loosely coupled architecture, shifting left on security, trunk-based development, continuous integration, testing and deployment automation, that will help us to achieve continuous delivery. And we use the lean product management, team experimentation, working in small batches, gathering and implementing customer feedback. That is what gives us a better IT performance, which is a better business performance. Obviously, we have to look at security as an important point. And this I have created from my book, Adapting into Industry Infinity. There we are talking about DevSecOps. So we have to bake security into every aspect of the delivery lifecycle, in the lifecycle of the product. Even if you look at SRE, we are looking at a design and build option, because SRE and DevOps works together. It is complementary. If you see the 5 key pillars of SRE, it is talking about reducing organizational silo. It is talking about accepting failure as normal, the psychological safety. It is talking about implementing gradual change, the evolutionary transformation, not a big bang transformation. It is talking about leveraging tool and automation and measuring everything. In these two, have you ever seen a prescriptive scenario? Do this, do that, very specific? No, it is telling you to use your frameworks that are already there, but use it together to achieve these outcomes that we are looking at. Don't restrict and say that, oh, we are following a framework and that's all that is there. Whatever outcome happens. It's like a bureaucratic organization as per Ron Westrop, right? We are looking at, as long as we have followed the rule, the bureaucratic organization doesn't care anything else. whatever the outcome is. No, we need generative organizations. We need to continuously improve. So we need to look at everything as a software problem. We need to define the expectations of our customers' experience in terms of SLOs and work towards that, manage our work towards that. And that's where we can use other things like we have to bring in observability by setting those service level indicators. We need to focus on doing our work in such a manner that we adhere to those SLOs. So error budget helps in that. We have to remove toil from our work so that we have more time in delivering what we need to deliver, the outcome, and not spend our time wasting on repetitive, mundane work which has no enduring value. Obviously, automation is there. So this, when we do, it will reduce the cost of failure. And we will have a shared ownership. So what we need to look at is, look at every person of customers in your product or service who is using your product or service. Don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. Have a solution which is suitable to each of those personas. Design customizability through loosely coupled architecture. So a lot of re-architecting has to be done. Amazon did a complete re-architecting before it came to the state that what it is today. Process customizability to adapt to globalization is necessary. So value customers' perceptions and co-create value. Holistic domain knowledge is important. So in summary, we can say we have to look at internationalization to globalization. Servitized product is the new way to give an experience to the customer. It is not about deliverable. Convergence of IT with non-IT organizations. System integrators to take accountability of the outcomes that customers are expecting. Contracting needs to be done in a better manner to facilitate this way of working. Commercial model must be different than present, keeping outcome as a basis of collaboration, and transparency is the key to build the trust required. All should be part of the value stream as one team. Value stream management needs to be used extensively. Platform as a service is a good way to work. Cut across the silos of the frameworks. Re-architect and refactor technical debts. It has to be done as a key success factor. And everybody has to do it, not just one team, one group, one set of people. Experimentation-based development to be practiced. So evolutionary transformation and not big bang transformation. We need domain skills and holistic IT knowledge for everyone in the team. We have seen about the loosely coupled architecture. Technology is important, but not the critical aspect. So just doing technology doesn't solve the problem. It's a force multiplier. You give a good process, you get 20 times good outcome. Even you give a bad process, you get 20 times good, bad outcome. A bad process will never give you a good outcome. We need to practice chaos engineering, anti-fragility, and security has to be baked in every activity, and it should be everyone's responsibility. So that's what I had to say. You can have much more details about all these things that we talked about in my book, Adapting to Industry Infinity, the new way of working for IT services. Thank you, everyone.